We did it. The 2023 draft came and went. It's over. Can't believe we made it. I'm going to quickly run through my thoughts on the lottery selections, just give a brief overview of what I thought on the picks. I'm of course going to have more detailed stuff coming out in the next few weeks, but I just want to get my initial thoughts out there. Overall though, I thought the draft was really good. It was one of the deeper drafts in recent memories. I think a lot of teams got better, and I'm excited to continue covering these guys throughout the course of their career. Not a lot to say here, this was a foregone conclusion, but I'm happy Victor is going to his longtime favorite in San Antonio. Jeremy Sochan was one of my favorite draftees last year, and I think they're going to be a phenomenal pairing. Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson both work great off ball too. I'd be on the lookout for San Antonio to land a point guard of the future at some point, but otherwise they've found their son that the franchise will orbit for years to come. I'm not going to harp on passing on Scoot. Obviously, I thought he was the second best talent in this draft, but what's done is done. I will just say this, Hornets, you messed up. But Brandon Miller is a fine selection. I think he's going to have a nice long basketball career. Elite perimeter shooter. There's a pathway to him developing those ball handling and playmaking skills well, and becoming a solid number 2 option for LaMelo Ball in that system. Miller is still a very talented basketball player. The Blazers did it. I'm ecstatic they didn't trade their pick, and I'm even more ecstatic they landed a future perennial all-star and chip carrier in Scoot Henderson. I'm fine with a Scoot Dame pairing in the short term, letting Henderson learn the NBA ropes under one of the best point guards of all time, but at some point the Trailblazers are going to have to pivot and hand the reins to their new duo of Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe, which is a phenomenal pairing both from an athletic standpoint and fit. Home run pick for Portland on draft night. The hype was real behind the Thompson twins, with the men off the board first here at number 4 to the Houston Rockets. I think Amen is a phenomenal pick for the current iteration of the Houston Rockets, and I word it like that only because there's a chance they go and sign a point guard in free agency, which I would highly advise against. Let Amen run point guard next to Jalen Green. He's the best passer in this draft. Give him time to develop. You can add veterans elsewhere, but do not take the ball out of his hands and give him all the necessary development you can, and I think this is a great pick. I've been very wary of Houston taking him in. It's come to fruition now. We'll see what happens. But from an overall team building perspective, I do think they made the right pick, and I think Amen fits perfectly with Houston. On the flip side, we have Ausar Thompson, 5th overall to the Pistons. Love the pick, love the fit. I think Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Ausar as your 3-headed playmaking monster is fantastic. He's going to provide much needed defense and athleticism to that roster. He fills into the 3 spot great. I'm hopeful the shooting can come around, but otherwise he's a high IQ player who should make an immediate impact for Detroit. This felt like a great selection for Detroit in terms of both adding general talent due to the lack thereof, and grabbing someone who fits the roster and philosophy of the team. Potentially my favorite fit in this entire draft, I pleaded my case with Orlando pre-draft to take Anthony Black, much to the dismay of Magic fans, but I do think they've just landed one of the final pieces that is going to take this roster over the edge. I had him 4th on my big board. I am on record as a massive fan. A jumbo point guard next to their already oversized stars in Banchero and Wagner. He can play make, one of the best perimeter defenders in the class, extremely savvy. If he can even reach the middle range of his outcome, he's going to elevate the floor and ceiling of this team exponentially. Really solid get for the Magic, albeit maybe not the most flashy. I really felt this one in my bones in the days leading up to the draft. Bilal Coulibaly to the Wizards, they traded up 1 spot to nab him. I think this makes a ton of sense, especially in terms of this new rebuild that Washington is embarking on. They have torn the roster down to its studs and now drafted an 18-year-old French prospect who has skyrocketed in the basketball world over the last few years. Honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan of Bilal, but the Wizards have endless time to develop him. I can see the vision at 6'8", 7'2" wingspan, great defender, potential secondary passing and playmaking. I totally get it. I see the vision. At number 8, the Pacers get their guy, Jarace Walker. I've loved this fit for a long time. I think he fits perfectly into what Indiana is building. Defensively, he's going to become the identity of this team pretty quickly. His playmaking fits right in alongside Hallie, Mathurin, and Moore. And I've been saying for a while now, I think the Pacers are one legitimate piece away from making noise in the East. And with untapped on-ball upside, Jarace could be that piece. A+ grade for me here. This was actually the first pick I didn't feel great about at first glance. UCF forward Taylor Hendricks to Utah at number 9. I really do love Hendricks' potential as a defensive anchor and three-point specialist, but I really never linked him to the Jazz pre-draft. I thought they'd take a bigger swing, seeing as they're kind of in that middling ground. So it felt weird initially, but after seeing their later picks, Keontae George at 16 and Bryce Sensabaugh at 28, I'm much more fine with this high floor selection in the lottery. I think he's a good fit next to Lauri Markkanen in the front court and should have a long, bright future with the Jazz. One of my favorite selections on the night, OKC traded up, got their guy in Kentucky guard Cason Wallace. I had Cason 5th on my personal big board. I'd mocked him to OKC in a mock or two. I'm a massive believer in both his individual talent and fit with the Thunder. And I'll have the privilege of actually getting to cover him with the team now. He's going to be a phenomenal off-ball and team defender, highly impactful in that regard, and he's going to be able to toggle between point and shooting guard depending on the personnel on floor for Oklahoma City. This was a sensational selection. Bit of a surprise here, one that feels like it was kind of hiding in plain sight though. Jett Howard 11th overall to the Magic. Grady Dick was the preference here for a lot of people, but Howard might actually make a bit more sense in the fact that he's a tad longer, is better at putting the ball on the floor, and slightly better mover of the basketball in general. I don't think the value here is great, but I totally get the pick for Orlando. Go get your guy, especially when you didn't get a quote-unquote floor spacer at number 6. The Mavericks traded back, got off a bad contract in Bertans, and grabbed 7-footer Derek Lively 12th overall. I'll be honest, probably my least favorite lottery selection. There were obviously reports Lively was trending towards the lottery in recent weeks. I never totally bought it, but here we are. I think the fit is a fine one. I do think Lively is a little less ready to immediately contribute than people think. He's not a phenomenal rebounder for his size and position. Not a ton of offensive versatility just yet. He fouled a bit too much in college. He'll be fine there, but it might not immediately translate to elite rim protection. If Dallas was drafting him to be their center for a championship run next year, I think that's too high of expectations. Patience with Lively will be required. I do think this pick was a tad high, but again, I totally understand swinging on Lively's versatility, especially if they have the patience to match. Grady Dick, 13th overall to the Toronto Raptors, felt really weird to me initially, but has since grown on me to be one of my favorite selections in this draft. I had him 6th on my board. I really believe in his potential secondary or tertiary star power as a smooth, limitless range shooter with some untapped on-ball skills, meaning I think his fit with Scottie Barnes is a great one. He's going to play well off the current Raptors core. I'm hoping he gets the green light and lots of touches in year 1. Not the flashiest pick, but I mocked Jordan Hawkins to the Pels a few times, and I think this makes a ton of sense for them. He's good enough to be a day 1 contributor. Players with gravity like Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram are going to create space for him, and he's going to reciprocate that with elite level movement shooting and energy. I think his potential point of attack defense and transition offense should gel here too. Solid pickup for Nola. That is it for this one. Just wanted to get some initial thoughts out there. I will obviously have a lot more stuff coming out in the next few months. I'll be out at Summer League in Las Vegas in the next few weeks, so be on the lookout for stuff there. The draft was a blast. Can't wait to dive deeper into it, and until next time.